We're going to start in a few minutes just because the last session will be late. We'll begin with Kang on board. Thank you.
아, 이거? 아니요. 보여야 되겠네요. 네. I'm very glad to meet you and present to you my proposal. 네. I'm very glad to meet you and to present to you my proposal to an ecological oriented basic income. From the perspective of social and ecological economic democracy, ecological conservation and basic income must go hand in hand. So far, these two issues have been discussed separately, and attempts to integrate them have not yet been made in earnest. I would like to present a proposal for an ecologically oriented basic income that integrates ecological conservation and basic income. The proposal starts from the inseparability of ecological justice and social justice. Sorry. The relationship between economic system and the ecosystem is best understood in terms of energy matter cycle. This insight began with Marcus, who perceived labor as a metabolism with nature, and has been elaborated by the theory of open system, the very foundation of economics ecosystem theory. From this perspective, the amount of energy matter input into economic system from ecosystem is equal to the amount of waste energy and waste matter released from economic system into ecosystem. This means the depletion of ecosystem resources and the ecological crisis are two sides of the same coin. The depletion of ecosystem resources and the ecological crisis have been accelerated through mass production and mass consumption in economic system. Mass production and mass consumption are the results of rapid capital accumulation. Capital accumulation is accompanied by the spread of social poverty. The market economic system, which is centered on the accumulation of capital, can only pursue the expansion of national debt or household debt to resolve the contradictory situation of expanding production and shrinking consumption. Therefore, the market economic system binds people in debt and deprives them of their freedom. And the system of mass production and mass consumption that relies on the expansion of debt sucks out the ecological wealth that future generations should enjoy, and inevitably destroys the ecological basis for survival. In such a situation, we must ask how to control the mechanism of capital accumulation and expansion that causes social poverty and ecological crisis at the same time. To that question, I would like to propose two solutions. First, to the excessive accumulation of capital and spread of social property, labor and capital must achieve an institutional balance of power. The balance of power between labor and capital is a prerequisite for dismantling the subsumption of labor to capital, which lies at the heart of market economy system. It is an institutional relationship between labor and capital based on the recognition of the mutual inviolability and mutual limitations of laborers' rights and owners' rights. Such a relationship is a right relationship between labor and capital, and that is an institutional expression of social justice. Second, to operate market economic system under the condition of ecological integrity, it is necessary to achieve a balance of power between ecosystem and economic system. It is a way to manage the relationship between ecosystem and economic system in a just manner that recognizes the rights of nature and respects those rights as much as possible. The rights of nature refer to the rights of each living and non-living entity to occupy its own proper place and maintain its existence within multi-layered networks of ecological relationships. If the power of the corporation representing the rights of nature is not able to count the power of the corporation representing the interests of economic system, the usurpation of the rights of ecosystem for the interest of economic system will never end. When the balance of power between ecosystem and economic system is realized, a right relationship between ecosystem and economic system can be established. That is an institutional expression of ecological justice. Regarding recognizing that social justice and ecological justice are inseparably fused together, I define social and ecological economic democracy as a plan to pursue the balance of power between labor and capital, and at the same time, the balance of power between ecosystem and economic system. Yeah. Social and ecological economic Social and ecological economic democracy is a political and social plan to serve social poverty and ecological crisis at the same time. The core of the plan is to design income distribution at the level of national economy to combine basic income and ecological conservation. The essence of such income distribution is to extract accumulated capital on a large scale and spend it in securing the stability and healthiness of ecosystem on the one hand, and in securing the material basis for all people to live with human dignity and freedom on the other. It is a method of income distribution that drastically reduces the share of capital that goes into mass production and consumption, and drastically increases the share of capital that goes into ecosystem conservation and human dignified life and freedom. With such an income distribution, part of the capital accumulated in market economy system can be allocated to ecosystem conservation, another part to people's welfare, and the rest part to investment for the future, which is the original interest of capital. Here, I would like to add some words about redirecting some of the accumulated capital to ecosystem conservation. Such a redirection can be seen as repaying the principal and interest of ecological debt. The inherent value of the energy and matter inputted from ecosystem to economic system has not been captured by price or values theories, and the work of ecosystem in breaking down waste energy and waste materials released from economic system into ecosystem has not been yet paid for. The ecological debt has resulted from economic system's failure to return ecosystem share to it. The ecological debt cannot but be estimated as astronomical. So, even if we were to return some of the capital share to the realm of ecosystem conservation, that would be nothing more than an installment payment of interest on the ecological debt. Let us now define. Let's now define the basic principles of income distribution, taking into account the socio-economic characteristics of the gross national product. In presenting these basic principles, I start from Marx's scheme of the reproduction of capital, which helps us to find the conditions for the macro equilibrium of production and consumption in an economic system of commodity exchange. According to the scheme defined and applied to modern market economy, there are no obstacles to achieving a macro balance of production and consumption, provided that part of capital accumulated in various forms is used for ecosystem preservation and the rest is appropriately distributed between labor and capital. From the perspective of social and ecological economic democracy, I suggest that the national income be distributed in 3 steps. The first step is to extract a significant part of the accumulated capital and establish a fund for ecological conservation. The second is to appropriately divide the remainder into labor share and capital share so as to meet the conditions of macro balance of production and consumption. The third is to appropriately divide the share of labor into wage labor income and basic income. It would be appropriate to divide wage labor income and basic income in a ratio of 1:1. It is because the marginal propensity to consume is greater for those with lower incomes. However, it would also be reasonable not to set the ratio in advance, but to leave it to social and political consensus. In such an income distribution, those who have jobs in the market would receive a combination of basic income and market income, which those without jobs would receive only basic income. People who get only the basic income would have more opportunities to enjoy goods and services that the market does not provide, since they would be able to take better care of themselves and be more involved in community life. In envisioning an ecologically oriented basic income, I start from the premise that basic income and ecosystem conservation are the pillars for restructuring our society and economy. An economy without ecological conservation cannot be sustainable, and the society without basic income cannot maintain solidarity and social peace. In a sense, ecological conservation and basic income must go hand in hand. Thank you.
Thank you, for your presentation. Next we have Ji-Eun and Hanshin. The implications of advocating for basic income and the Commonwealth dividend in the context of ecological transformation.
Hello everyone, my name is Injung. It is an honor to meet you today. Mike is here. Peace for everyone in ours. Okay. Today, in celebration of the BN Congress, the topic I would like to share about is the implications of advocating for basic income and Commonwealth dividends in the context of ecological transformation. Okay, this study investigates how to set up a basic income standard while achieving an ecological transformations. This study was conducted with Ji-Eun. Also, this presentation was published in 2 journals, Korean journals, article in South Korea. Since the early 2000s, the Basic Income Korean network has defined basic income as dividends of the Commonwealth. Definition of BI as an equal dividends to the commons, that is, as distributive justice, is a unique approach. Moreover, interest in BI has been expressed as part of green ideologies, even though green BI is ignored in discussion in Korea. So obviously, the historical background of BI in Korea strongly features the green agenda in accordance with common dividends. This study is for deeper understanding of the relationship of this one between ecological transformation, basic income, and Commonwealth dividends. Let's look at the relationship between ecological transformation and BI. One of the arguments in favor of BI is that it helps stimulate the economy. However, in the context of ecological transformation, such point of view raises concerns that it could encourage a level of consumption that is destructive to environment. However, some argue that BI payment can facilitate a transformation of our society into a post-productivist society, as well as encouraging ecological living. BI can reduce the importance of paid employment in our society and reduce the need for personal goods, allowing for more leisure and less consumption. Now let's look at another relationship between ecological transformation and Commonwealth dividends. The goal of associating Commonwealth dividends with ecological transformation is to correct environmental pollution through a taxation plan and to lower the cost of transformation. Those will reduce the inequality. However, if the method of raising Commonwealth dividends is environmentally destructive, this can also be ecologically problematic. To sum up, the relationship between ecological transformation and BI and ecological transformation and Commonwealth dividends is connected and diverging. However, researching on perception of BI has not centered on an ecological perspective. Such discussion remains at the theological level. Therefore, this study provides insight into the potential implications of advocating for Commonwealth dividends and BI in ecologically transformative actions. This is my friends or friend. To analyze, we have conducted a case study targeting young peoples engaged in ecological activities. We met 14 young activists from mid-September to mid-November 2021. The recruitment of subject was focused on activists taking an ecofeminism course in Namon City in Korea, and ecological activists had gathered in various areas. The case story was included as follows. First, the meaning of ecological transformation in their lives. Second, the perception of BI and Commonwealth dividend. Finally, what conditions are required for their eudaimonia? There are veganism. Okay. Yes. Next, this study was conducted only in the natural commonwealth. So to more investigate the perception of the natural commonwealth, the discussion was focused on the Alaska model using these 5 models. The concept of commonwealth dividends includes 4 keywords: commons, commoning, commonwealth, and commonwealth dividends. There are some issues. Firstly, how the commons should be defined. And the second, since the common is formed through commoning among commoners, the democratic management of commons should be considered. Third, the commonwealth should be defined whether tangible or intangible. First, to whom will the commonwealth be distributed? This aspect is reflected on the first column in the table, and accordingly, it can divide into the 5 models. To illustrate, model 1 refers to UBI managed by partnership between private and public and market-driven mechanism. Model 2 indicates UBI managed by national government. Model 3, BI for resident managed by national government. Model 4, BI for resident by local governments which pursue to produce and consume locally. Finally, Model 5 refers to diffuser of UBI because they pursue the reservation for natural commons and pursue to the intangible benefit. It reflects on the growth perspective. Let's look at the key finding. Ecological transformation at an individual level begins with a time of a collapse or crack in one's life. Young people who have accumulated fatigue from studying, working, and even setting standards of life due to someone else's conceived dreams or expectation of a dream life for the subject, but this root means a break from the society they've lived in. This experience is never pleasurable. So young people who have never heard of alternative living go through a long period of wandering. In the end, in the process of long patience and constant searching, they create companion, find a community like this, and realizing the form of life they want, becoming aware of cyclical life. Ultimately, leading to ecological thinking. Let's take a closer look. Okay, this is quote. You see, in the process of transforming their lives, young people start to feel their certain aspect of their life become less or more. Let me quote what study respondent said. The picture on the left one contains the vegetable that our respondent, my friends, farmed. This is not a radish or sweet potato that you meet as a product at the market in Starbucks, but a precious colleague who has lived with herself, the sun, and lain around her. It's no longer natural that can be traded for money. The friends. And the signal of this feminism signal said. Okay, based on this sense, ecological activists work to establish a foundation for institutional guarantee of ecological life. It is only a matter of time before there's an ecological transformation. If more and more of these people participate, right? No. The youth says it's not going to happen easily. In fact, the youth in the study were faced with criticism in society as people who do not do something. They were having economic difficulties. There's no social safety net that can resolve their instability. In the end, they were driven into blind spot, which threatened the future of ecological transformation. Regarding perception and opinion of BI, Those who are noticing a lot of things in their lives that are outside of wage labor seem to welcome BI. Overall, respondents were fully aware of BI, and in many cases recognized it from green channels, and majority of the respondents were critical to BI in general, cited unconditionality is at its largest advantage. Most respondents dismissed the positions that if BI is provided, people will quit paid work and overspend on their budget. They said it was a lack of trust in humans to assume that people receiving a BI were increasing their consumption. However, they said that putting people in an exacting competitive environment could lead to a proliferation of consumption. Therefore, they said that in addition to BI, various policies for alternative society should be considered together. Now, moving on to the perception of Commonwealth dividends. Most of our respondents, except for a few, were familiar with Commonwealth dividends, including the Alaska models. The interesting part was, although the majority of the respondents were in favor of BI and fundamentally agreed with the distributive justice of Commonwealth dividends, most of them were against the dividends of natural commons. They object to the development of natural commonwealths, such as extracting oil in Alaska, and complained about it as being solely for monetary value. Let's look into the argument in more detail. Yeah. Regarding the 5 model classifying the natural commonwealths part earlier, respondents tend to support model 5, which is for diggers, and model 4, referring to producing and consuming locally, also received partial agreement. It showed a contradiction. Although most of the respondents were supportive of BI and agreed with the concept of Commonwealth dividends, when it came to natural commonwealths, they strongly objected. Rather than talking about dividends, the respondents seemed to prioritize the sustainability of commons and the lives of non-human beings living in the commons. Okay. Now I want to summarize our study by organizing the relationship between aforementioned concepts. Our research respondents felt lived as ecological subject. In the cycle of ecological thought and practice, they were born in a mutually caring relationship with separated elves through reconnection work, and they aimed for a life of self-reliance and self-sufficiency. Regarding BI, firstly, the activists believed that BI could foster autonomy and self-sufficiency. Furthermore, they understood the universality and unconditionality of BI as a means to positively reshape our perception of work. Secondly, while concern had been raised that BI might promote overconsumption, most of respondents were inclined toward the Polish package. For ecological transformation, it includes measures such as providing access to nature-connected land, establish comprehensive care system, and implementing ecological lifestyle programs. Regarding Commonwealth dividends, there was a consensus that dividends could potentially deplete our natural commons. This consensus arises from an emphasis on dividends rather than the restoration of commons. Respondents stressed the importance of UBI that centered around the communality and interconnectedness, cautioning against a narrow focus solely on dividends. Finally, I'd like to talk about BI and Commonwealth dividends. First, arguing BI as a Commonwealth dividend is more ecological than claiming BI alone. Since the BI of Commonwealth dividends is based on a sense of communality, we can continue to discuss sustainable BI around an interconnected worldview. Second, the theory of BI from Commonwealth dividend, which does not adhere to ecological perspective, can be combined with the justification for distribution justice to be mechanism for destroying natural commonwealth. This is due to the result of focusing on dividends rather than communality. In addition, BI alone cannot achieve ecological transformation. In other words, other policies must be discussed together in order to function as BI for ecological transformation. Thank you for listening to presentation so far. I hope that many discussions will unfold during Q&A session that follows. The Q&A session will be conducted with Ji-Eun Lee, a co-researcher. Thank you.
Next we have Junho.
Hello everyone. Hello everyone. You had a wonderful time at 4-day Congress. I'm presenting about green industrial transition and citizens' dividend. We have to do this to create a better cycle of innovation and distribution. Introducing myself again. My name is Junho, and I'm co-chair of Basic Income Party of South Korea. Let's start with a sentence of Gerald Diamond in his book. What were they thinking when they cut down the last palm tree? Easter Islanders are said to have cut down trees to move the giant stone statue. Until even the forest was disappeared, they may have focused on their own task. This is the problem of short-termism, of seeing only what's close to you. Individuals and companies make choices that benefit them in short term, even if they are big losses for society in long term. We have to overcome the short-termism if we want a better society and future. We need a mission-oriented approaches to overcome short-termism. Historically, when government exercised mission-oriented leadership, they have done great things. The moonshot in the 1960s is an example. The government-led industrialization of Korea in 1970s is another example. In 1970s, Korea government banned the import of foreign cars and pushed the car company to develop original models. Of course, we cannot forget the government oppression of workers during this time. Mission-oriented approaches means that government sets the direction of the economy and organizes broad public-private collaboration. At a time of an ecological crisis like this, government should tilt the playing field in the direction of a green economy instead of just leveling it. The long-term public investment is necessary for technological innovation. Let's take a look at the challenges and missions that Korea is facing. Korea faces two huge challenges. One is the climate crisis. Second, the serious inequality. To overcome these challenges, I propose two missions. One, the green transition, carbon neutral by 2040. Second, citizens' lifetime dividend. For this, we need a Korea Citizen Wealth Fund. Two tasks require a great budget, but it is smaller than the risk of not doing anything. First mission, green transition. A climate trade regime is currently set in the world for the carbon neutral by 2050. As an export-oriented economy, South Korea loses a lot if it is excluded from the climate trade regime. However, Korean government's efforts for carbon neutral are awfully inadequate. Yoon administration is focusing on only nuclear power, not renewable energy. The RE100 and Climate Club by G7 will become a new great war against two countries that don't go carbon neutral. I propose that Korea's mission is to achieve carbon neutral by 2040. Why 2040 instead of 2050? It's because climate change is much more urgent than in the past. The government must lead mission-oriented industrial policies, which include procurement for renewable energy infrastructure and investment for green tech innovation. For example, efficient solar power cells. Korea is the land of no oil, which is not changeable, but Korea can be land of solar and wind if we want. Initial investment is huge, but it will pay for itself in time. Korea spent 150 trillion won, about $100 billion a year on energy imports. This money can be saved when we have RE100 energy system. To finance budget for investment, I suggest government to issue green bond. However, there are questions. When government investment creates innovative growth, is it right the benefit comes to only corporations? How do we create a system in which public investment and innovation returns to citizens' income security? The answer to this question is the second mission. It is to create Korea Citizen Wealth Fund. Innovation, as we know, is the engine of growth, but it also increases inequality. We need a system that guarantees virtuous cycle of innovation and distribution. Basic income is also a good solution that combines innovation and distribution. However, it is unrealistic to rely on taxation alone for enough level of basic income. We need the alternative, social wealth fund. Social wealth fund are funds created by countries that uses its profit for public good. Social wealth fund include sovereign wealth fund. There are currently 133 sovereign wealth funds in the world, with the largest being Norwegian government pension fund global. Generally, governments own funds and use the profit for government's own purposes. A very small number of funds distribute the profit to people or use it for specific purpose. Alaska Permanent Fund and Texas Permanent School Fund do this. Recently, new type of social fund called the Citizen Wealth Fund has been proposed, where citizens own the fund and distribute dividend to all. Economist Joseph Stiglitz advocates for this idea, naming it Universal Basic Capital. Think tank People's Policy Project proposed Alaska Solidarity Fund, and OpenAI CEO Sam Altman proposed American Equity Fund. The Alaska model being based on oil resources, these proposals offer a variety of funding sources, profit of currency issuance, IPO taxes, corporate taxes in the form of stocks, etc. I propose to found a Korean Citizens Wealth Fund, naming it Korea Solidarity Fund. The government finances it, but citizens own the fund and distribute the profit to all citizens. Government should invest the fund in the mission-oriented company that contributes carbon neutral, green innovation, and ESG values. This is a tentative estimate of amount of fund and dividend in the future. We started with 100 trillion won, $80 billion, and invest an additional 1 trillion won each year. I'm sorry. I missed the last paper. In 10 years, the fund will pay $100 for everyone per year. In 20 years, pay $2,700. In 30 years, pay $5,800 per year. This may be an optimistic scenario, but not impossible. Korea Solidarity Fund is funded by tax revenue from government green investment and inheritance taxes and gift taxes, revenues from public property such as state-owned land and frequency, the license fee for state-owned technologies, equity as a collateral for government guaranteed loans to companies. Korea can found Alaska Permanent Fund in Korea version that is based on economic commonwealth, not oil resources. This is a way to make everyone co-owner of the capital. My conclusion, by two great missions, green industrial transition and lifetime citizen dividends, we can create a better cycle of innovation and distribution. Advertisement. I published a book of this idea titled Mission State. In other words, country with missions. I wish my idea would be helpful for Korea Basic Income Movement and other countries. Thank you.
Last, we have Hyung-Sang.
Oh, hello everyone. As you know, I'm Hyosang. Yeah. This is a revised version of the presentation I presented at the Korean German academic conference online held on 6th May. The conference was co-organized by ATAC, Institute for Political and Economic Alternatives in Seoul, and Basic Income Network in Germany, and Basic Income Korea Network. The second part of the conference, all participants agreed to release the memorandum, Basic Income as a necessary component of a socio-ecological transformation and the key element for climate justice. With me, Olaf from Germany. He will recite memorandum in a short form after my presentation. So let's get started here. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. You can see the overview of my presentation. Okay. The concept Anthropocene is very paradoxical. On the one hand, it refers to the most recent period of Earth's history, and human activity started to have a significant impact on planet's climate and ecosystems. On the other hand, it refers the breakdown of the environment that has been a feasible condition and a setting for so-called human civilization. But we have already crossed the line. So I propose the concept, the early Anthropocene. Because we should try to figure out a way to build and maintain an inhabitable planet. So the even though we enter into a new geological epoch, so we cannot return to Holocene. And the geological time and human time are on very different scale. So, so I think the concept, the early Anthropocene is very useful for us to what is to be done and what could be done. Next is the problematic of climate justice. Climate justice and environmental, the concept climate justice is derived from the idea that climate crisis and environmental breakdown is precipitated and devastated by the social system that is founded upon inequality and then aggregates it. We can call it in various names as more so-called carnival capitalism. So we can see the climate injustice as a problem of system. So number one, the climate capitalism is seeking unlimited profit and accumulation, promotes and is based upon inequality. Capitalism not only exploits the so-called economic fields, but also expropriates and dominates various sectors that are its outside and its foundation. One of the objects of expropriation and domination is so-called nature. In this case, nature is a source of input and a sink. And then 이게 저게 더 편? Sorry. And that okay. That capital expropriates the nature. That means dispossessing the base of livelihood of people in the nature and erode the base of life of humanity globally. And lots of separation made by capital hinder the common efforts, and erosion of state or political community by capital hamper the democratic and autonomous decision by the members of society. So we need socio-ecological transformation. That means we need system change, not climate change. So we secure the sustainable and good life for all, including non-human beings. And in this case, the concept of transformation also pointing to the urgency of tasks. Next, in socio-ecological transformation, what is the implication of base income as common dividend? I think the aims of base income is reduce inequality, securing dignity and freedom and participation. And I think the actually range of base income as Commonwealth dividend is changing the established distribution and redistribution system, and the base income as Commonwealth dividend raised questions about the dominant property system and trying to shift it. Next page, and base income as Commonwealth dividend gave gave us participating in the process of decision making, so transformation and transition to environment friendly life, promoting various economic activities, and in this case, the goals of economy is not growth itself, but livelihood. And social, what is the role of basic income, and what is the role and position of basic income in socio-ecological transformation? I think basic income is a necessary and key element in the transformation, but we should position basic income in a broader plan or broader prospect toward a socio-ecological society. Okay. Oh, thank you. And hola.
Thank you very much indeed. My name is Olaf Michael Ostertag, contributing from the German Netzwerk Grundeinkommen. And both the Korean network and the German network, we felt that since the urgency of the climate crisis is more and more evident, we needed some form of signaling coming out of this Congress. And therefore, we published a resolution which we hope Yen might adopt and publish it too. So I will only read a few paragraphs of this because the time is closing. The resolution is entitled Basic Income as a Necessary Component of a Socio-Ecological Transformation and Key Element for Climate Justice. Global warming and the ongoing exploitation and destruction of nature are caused by the prevailing mode of production and life. It disregards nature and its inherent values, uses it as a mere resource. However, this way of production and life also destroys the basis of humankind's existence and impairs the quality of life of many people, present and future generations. A fundamental societal transformation of the way of production and life is therefore necessary for the survival of humankind. Particularly affected are those who were disadvantaged in the past and are disadvantaged now, and without a real change of course, will be even more affected by the ecological consequences and climate change, the countries of the global south, and the poorer people who have contributed almost nothing to climate change. So therefore, a societal transformation is a necessity for survival as a socio-ecological transformation, and so thus a fundamental change in values is necessary. The overexploitation of nature and its destruction went and goes hand in hand with the economic exploitation of people, the economic exploitation and blackmailing of poorer countries by richer countries, by corporations and shareholders. A socio-ecological transformation must be oriented towards the needs of all people as well as towards fundamental ecological requirements, and must stop climate change immediately. Care for people and care for nature belong together. These are sustainable values, not the accumulation of superfluous goods to maintain the prevailing system of production and consumption. A socio-ecological transformation must enable all people, including future generations, to live in an intact environment and at the same time grant them a socially just share of the wealth of society and nature. To solve social problems, we do not need further growth. What we need is a fairer distribution of the income and wealth we already have. It is already enough for everyone. Initially, the basic income can also be co-financed by taxing unecological or climate-damaging production and consumption. The revenues from these taxes are returned to all members of society with a basic income. This not only curbs climate-damaging production, but also redistributes wealth from top to bottom, since the richer consume unecologically and are responsible for high climate-damaging emissions. In a global perspective, in order to build basic income systems in poorer countries, there must be a redistribution from richer countries and global corporations to countries made poor by them, as well as for building a socially and ecologically sustainable society and economy in these countries. Only if the basic income secures everyone's existence and social participation will it also enable the economically blackmail-free democratic shaping of public affairs by the people. This is because the political pressure for economic growth and job creations, no matter how ecologically disastrous they are, is thus greatly weakened. So, I'm closing because this is very long. These are all good reasons for the basic income movement, the ecological movement, the feminist movement, and other social movements to join their forces. Let's fight together for a world in which all people can live a good life on a healthy planet. The dominant economic model is destabilizing societies and the planet. It is time for change, and it is time for a basic income too. So this is our proposition. Many organizations have already adopted it, and we are still collecting signatures from all over the world. So we hope that many of the affiliations of Bien will join us, and that we can have this resolution be spread around so that the word spreads that basic income might be, as we have seen in the presentations in this and many other panels on this Congress, is the right way to do it. And now we can go on and thrive as humankind. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Vincent. By way of synthesis, before we go into questions, I would like to offer a bit of a reflection. I was asked to speak louder because the microphone is up there. So please also, when you ask your questions, speak loud to the group so the gods can hear us. Murray Bookchin in the 1960s said something that is still expressing today. He said that the relationship that human beings have with nature is and the hierarchical relationship that exists cannot be resolved unless we change the relationship that we have with each other. And so in today's panels, we heard a lot about how to balance the relationship between capital and labor, between production and consumption, through different forms of income distribution. At the national level, we talked about growth, commons, dividends, and the contradictions that there are within them, and also about investment and ways of going towards a new way of achieving innovation in a way, so basically. Now, I think there are many questions that come from there. I feel like I want the floor to ask questions, but I will just leave some provocations to the speakers, which are regarding, first of all, the question of this idea of the green transition. So where I live now in Berlin, recently there was a Tesla factory opened in the region of Brandenburg, and the Tesla factory drinks up the same amount of water than all of Berlin drinks in a year. I think we're even the biggest sort of corporation that drinks water. Coca-Cola is obviously the first one, and they claim to do some sort of transition when it comes to renewable energy, where a lot of the lithium and a lot of the metals come from Latin America, where I'm from, in Guatemala and other regions. And so when it comes to investments and when it comes to transitions, how do we imagine those? Where are the things going to come from? And then the other question I had was about, we talked about ideas and models and proposals, but there is this question of political change, and how does political change happen when it comes to these ecological struggles and social struggles, and how can we as a basic income movement create more intersections between things like movements for debt cancellation, for the degrowth movement, and other progressive movements that are alive today. And to end with that, my question was about the relationship between the household level, the national level, and the international level, because of course, these are all, we live in a planet, this is our house, Oikos is our home, the planet, so how could we go about changing that? So, questions, please.
Yeah, this is a question for Junho. I am very interested in your proposal, and I have three questions about it. One is that you seem to be advocating for a kind of a positive approach as opposed to what we might think of as the negative approach of taxing carbon. Right, so instead you seem to be suggesting that the governments invest in renewable energy and that the citizens then get a return on that investment, which seems like a really interesting approach to me. Just want to make sure that I had that correct. And then the second is, doesn't Korea already have a sovereign wealth fund? And what is it being used for? Could it be used for a citizens' dividend?
Yes, two questions.
Okay. So maybe let's take questions first, and then we can go to the. So I see Guy has a question.
It's more of a provocative comment on the two papers relating to the commons and common funds and common dividends. I have recently written a book called The Blue Commons. Now, everybody talks about the green transition, yet nearly 3/4 of the world is covered by sea. And under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea and the seabed and all that is in the sea are commons. In other words, they belong to all of us. The World Bank, the IMF, and other institutions believe that economic growth in the future will be dominated by what happens in the sea. The sea contains more resources, more minerals, more resources, more biodiversity, much more than on land. And I urge you to consider that the debate on common funds and common dividends should incorporate consideration of what is happening in the sea. And as I said in my speech at the beginning, Korea is one of the countries where your sea surface is 4.7 times your land surface. And the resources in the sea have to be considered in that. And I would urge finally that in your consideration, which is excellent, I think you're going in the right direction. You should think of sources of the funds and making sure that any fund, common fund, is made independent of government, because otherwise it will be politically corrupt. Thank you.
Thank you, Guy. You have any other questions?
I have one, and we're talking about, it sort of builds on what you were saying earlier about to create political change, you often have to network with like various other political groups. And I noticed this constant tension between people who are more technological focused and people who have more of a degrowth perspective. And I feel intuitively like basic income can bridge these schools. I just wondered if people had any thoughts on that from the panel.
So a question over here.
Thank you to all of the speakers. That was really engaging. So thanks so much. I suppose my question was just something that kind of threaded through a lot of the presentations actually, and perhaps sort of culminated in the final manifesto from the gentleman here. But I was just wondering about a decolonial model as well, and where thinking around First Nations reparations comes into the sorts of things that you were talking about, the inequality in terms of wealth distribution across the world. And so it's sort of just a bit of a question about, has that been considered in the thinking around development of the manifesto, and how that might play into it as well?
Thank you very much. Maybe can answer that.
I'm sorry, Armaz, I didn't understand your first question, but when it is finished, I will answer. And second question, you asked me, there is a Korean sovereign wealth fund, but I think the problem of the Korean sovereign wealth fund now is we don't know how the government to use the profit to any purposes. Government hide the purpose of using the profit of the sovereign wealth fund. And second, the problem is the government's fund's purpose is just to increase the amount of the fund. It is not. We need the transition, but the government want just the amount, the very big amount, and we don't know how government use it. But I am optimistic. We already have the sovereign wealth fund. We can change the purpose of the sovereign wealth fund to distribute the profit to all citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for your quality comments. Actually, in this study, we are really focused on Alaska model, and because Alaska permanent fund dividend is a exemplary example of Commonwealth dividends. So
It's not.
no, okay. So, but we are more research about the sea resource and diversity, and then yes, thank you for your comments. And then there mentioned, so I agree with your comments. And then I think basic income, arguing basic income as Commonwealth dividends is incorporate a top-down approach and then bottom-up approach, because when we argue basic income as Commonwealth dividend, we can consider the commons as well as consider the distribution justice. So so I think it is more ecological way of arguing basic income when we are define basic income as common dividends. So yes, thank you for comments.
Okay. To Professor Guy Standing.
Professor Guy Standing, I totally agree with your opinion. And I said your concept of blue commons to argue to protect sea from nuclear contaminated water from Japan. And I think technologically we can use the sea as a commonwealth. As according to scientific news, the natrium in the sea can be developed to some sources for battery in the future. It is just one reason we have to focus on the sea. And your suggestion, the National Citizen Wealth Fund will be independent from governments. I totally agree, but I think we should use the government force to raise a fund, raise money. And it is very difficult. It may be difficult problem for us to use government force, and we prohibit government to intervene the fund. Yes, I will struggle to that matter. Thank you.
Guys, thank you for talking about blue comments, but sometimes I fight with my climate activists because they say it is not, of course, it's a source from humans, but they say it is a house from fish. A lot of fishes lives there. So when we think about the sea, blue commons, we have to think about it is there are a lot of lives there, non-humans. So if we want to think about and talk about blue commons, I think there are some rules about no destructive and pollutions, and we think about, I think so, because there are a lot of youth climate changes activists arise these days, but in Korea, climate activists sometimes ask me basic income destructive nature. So in here there are a lot of these controversy problems here. So thank you.
I have, okay. I want to say about political change concerning basic income and climate change. In fact, actually, who can clearly have the idea how to change the society in a year of uncertainty, right-wing populism, and so on. As Guy mentioned as 8 giants. So I think we are in a dilemma situation concerning social change and basic income. We need democracy to establish basic income, but we need basic income to deepen democracy. So we have 2 directions. On the one side, we started from the local or regional level, and yet the other hand, we should aim to change the central or national government, and further the global institutions. And if we have any lessons from the Korean experience, trying to implement or maintain the basic scheme in local level is so strong. So we should learn the lesson from it, because it is based on the popular support and very closing relationship. But so we have tried to find the place and opportunity in a level to basic income and progressive policies. And the other hand, we should to build a political coalition similar to New Deal coalition. But in that case, we propose the common goal in the towards the future, backward the past. I think the common goal in the towards the future is the climate justice and social ecological transformation. But I'm not sure in the process of building that coalition, actually basic income could play a role of cement and kind of banner or rally into that. But I try to figure out the way. So I think the carbon tax and carbon dividend and common dividend will be the candidates among them.
Yeah, I guess not.
Yes, and thank you very much for that question. We especially stated various times in the text that the time for wealth redistribution is high time now. Oh, I have to look into the camera, I've been told. It is high time to redistribute wealth, not only from corporations to individuals, but also from richer countries to poorer countries. Since this is a resolution text, we listed various ways how we could do that. We did not say especially this is the way to do it. We mentioned basic income, of course, to redistribute wealth to individuals, but we did not especially say how to collect the wealth from the richer countries and transfer it to the poorer countries, but we mentioned it several times as the goal of this policy. So yes, this has been considered.
Thank you. I suppose I was considering in terms of settler colonial context and the complexities within a settler colonial context, where if you're thinking about a wealth fund being extracted, which kind of goes to the point before about, you know, who owns those resources in an extractivist kind of context within a settler colonial system, where there are kind of multiple layers of ownership. And to Guy's point before, in Australia, where I'm obviously from, given my very broad accent, Torres Strait Islanders have been fighting for rights over their waterways, not just their lands, for decades and decades. And so the point about it not being a government-owned fund, I think is a really important one as well. But no, I totally. Thank you so much. Thanks for responding.
We have any last questions? We have a few minutes left.
I would like to ask if you have the copy of the manifesto to distribute to all of us.
Well, at the first day of the Congress, our distinguished Korean colleagues handed out their version. Don't know whether there are copies left, but there were copies for everyone. It looks like this. So this had been distributed on the first day of the Congress. Thank you.
And it's also in the PDF presentation for this
Right.
session. Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Are there any last questions? Otherwise, I would like to end with a quote I made. Actually, regarding a bit the ocean film. This is a quote by Murray Bookchin, a famous social ecologist. He says, I quote, "We are part of nature, a product of a long evolutionary journey. To some degree, we carry the ancient oceans in our blood. Our brains and nervous systems did not suddenly spring into being without long antecedents in natural history. That which we most prize is integral to our humanity. Our extraordinary capacity to think on complex conceptual levels can be traced back to the nerve network of primitive invertebrates, the ganglia of mollusks, the spinal cord of fish, the brain of an amphibian, and the cerebral cortex of a primate." Let's thank the speakers.